Possession crucial from this. How much longer will the referee allow? Dublin lead by a point, and there's the whistle. It's over. It's over.
We earned it by winning the last 2 matches on the road, and that's not going to be taken away from us.
But what I love in hurling, I love players that will never give in.
He hits it. It's over the bar. Oh, holy Moses.
Hello, welcome to the RTÉ GAA Podcast. Mikey, Stafford here. Hope you're all well. This week I am joined by Damian, Lawlor and Rory of RTÉ, and by Mayo football great Cora Staunton. How is everybody doing?
Very good, Mikey.
Good, Mikey, yeah.
Yeah, all good, Mikey.
Good stuff. We're going to get on to talking about the All-Ireland Ladies Senior Football Final in a little bit, Cora, but we couldn't let a Mayo person on here now and not ask them for their reflections on Saturday's rather remarkable All-Ireland football semi-final. We were here a few weeks ago and talking about the fatalism of Mayo fans who may think that, Jesus, it'll be just like us to beat the Dubs and then lose to Kerry. It'll be uber Mayo fatalism to think it would just like us to beat the Dubs and then lose to Tyrone. And there's a part of me that thinks, very familiar with Mayo fatalism as I am, as most people in Ireland are. Is there a part of Mayo people that think, Jesus, we kind of have Kerry's number, but Tyrone are a different kettle of fish altogether?
Yeah, I suppose it's quite interesting. The biggest question that has been asked, I suppose, since Saturday, especially over the weekend after the game, was, a lot of text messages, do you think it's better that Mayo have Tyrone or Kerry? So that's probably the question that can't be answered now till Sunday week. But yeah, no, I think it's, and obviously a novel pairing. I think there's obviously no real psychological baggage there in All-Ireland finals like there is obviously with Dublin and Kerry in years past. So yeah, I think it's going to be a very interesting final. Yeah, I suppose a lot of people are expecting Mayo or Kerry just to come through. Probably a lot of the Mayo people hadn't Tyrone much of a chance, obviously, with the COVID situation. But I think it's going to be a great final. Two counties that are very, very passionate about their county and obviously trying to win Sam. And the biggest thing now people are worrying about is tickets, because I think if Kerry are in the final, it's probably a little bit easier to get tickets. But yeah, certainly I was in Castlebar this morning and things are ramping up again. It has been quite... Since the Dublin game, the week after the Dublin game, everyone was on a high. They're kind of quiet at the moment, but I can see the build-up in Mayo is starting to pick up now after Tyrone's victory. So really looking forward to Sunday week and what will that hold.
Yeah, no, it's great, Damian, isn't that we have... they're two of the finest football counties in Ireland. Called a novel All-Ireland final pairing makes it sound like, we've got some, two kind of minnows have made it, when obviously they're two of the best counties in Ireland in term, for the last 15, 20 years. But it is a novel final. It was always going to be novel when Dublin weren't in it anyway. But it is great that after the 18 months that we now have an All-Ireland final here where, as Cora says, you've got two groups of supporters who are going to be going doolally for tickets. There's going to be no Yera-ism here at all. There's going to be no Kerry fans not being indifferent, but Cora's right. Tyrone might have a smaller population than Kerry, but I'd say the demand for tickets is a lot higher. It's just, there's a lovely kind of, it's a nice way to kind of put a cap on hopefully the final GAA COVID championship.
Yeah, definitely, Mikey. And the hunt for tickets has started already. Been getting calls from Mayo people all over the world and getting calls from Tyrone people also. And you're trying to explain that any goodwill you had with tickets was used up with the hurling final, when maybe I got three or four, and I have to try and get football tickets for those people before I can try and look after anybody else. But they're like the Golden Walker ticket. They don't really exist because your usual sources are shut off, because it just Ticketmaster, county secretaries links. There's no real way of networking to get a ticket as such. But look, people will find it. I think for the novelty pairing, I have to kind of laugh at this kind of accusation that Tyrone are set up a certain way because they lack maybe potency up front. They don't lack potency up front. They have plenty of it. To be fair to Mickey Hart, maybe all that personnel wasn't available for the latter days of his reign, but they're available now. And Derek Canavan made some impact when he came off the bench. Conor Myler did an unbelievable job. And I think all around the pitch, from Michael McKernan upwards, a feature of Mickey Hart's teams were that maybe he could have said between 9 and 11 scorers on any different match day. And that's still there, but their forward line looks more potent. Kyle McShane is there too. However, I just don't think Mayo will be as naive in letting Tyrone challenge them. I don't think Mayo will be sucked into coughing up turnover when they attack. I think Tyrone brought Kerry into the central channels and dispossessed them. I think that it was naivety, and I don't think Mayo will do it. I think Mayo are quite capable of making their own turnovers. Tyrone are also. Mayo have no fear. Like we talk about a team in transition, that's not a team in transition. They've been working away on the conditioning for 3 or 4 years now, with the likes of Mullen, O'Hora. So I think the point I'm making here is both teams are ready to go. Both teams hopefully will have a clean bill of health. I think the ticket situation will look after itself. The best thing to do is just turn your phone off and try and avoid people that you don't normally converse with, and just go for it. Yeah, I think it's going to be, as Cora says, she's dead right. It will be a fantastic game, and while there be a defensive outlook to maybe soaking up the pressure, the counter-attacking is going to be unbelievable, I feel.
Yeah, styles make fights, Rory, and you do get the impression you've two teams here who A, relish running the ball, and B, relish a team running at them with the ball. So and so you like this could be us neutrals. This could be a really frenetic All-Ireland final, I think.
Correct. Both very athletic, extremely athletic teams. Both well capable of running the ball from deep, but also I'm not so sure if, like, the big thing the last day, and I suppose it kind of caught up with them in extra time where they started to cramp up in a big way, was Kerry ran every kick out. When they looked to me like they had possibly a little bit of an advantage at midfield. And I think in Matthew Ruan, certainly Loftus with a very able assistant, I think Mayo, I can't see Mayo going down the same road there. I think they'll be slightly more agricultural in their approach, and they'll back their middle eight to win that war of attrition in and around the middle. But it's just a brilliant final to savor in so many ways. It's like the hill you were talking about, the buzz there, right? This is hilarious. I live in North County Dublin. There's more green and red flags around my park here at the minute. Genuinely, there's flags. I've got
those Ballymun fans get everywhere, Rory.
Where are all these Mayo people coming from? And I was down the club last night. We're in the middle of our street leagues at the minute. And I was down there last night. And we're Armagh for whatever that's worth in the mini All-Irelands, and I was talking to the club minister for finance, and I was saying, how many did we get? And he said 2, because that's what you get as a club. Yeah. And I said, how many requests have you got? And he said, about 150. And mostly Mayo people all living around. So look, they are like gold dust. It's a final to savour. Anytime that there's a final happens for the very first time, no different to the hurling, I think there's an extra buzz and an extra little bit of excitement and an extra bit of giddiness around it. And I think specifically in relation to two teams that wouldn't necessarily be dripping in historical success. Mayo, we obviously know 70 years. Tyrone have only won 3 and it's going back 13. So it's going to be a fantastic occasion regardless of who comes out on top. And it's just a final to really savour for the neutrals as well.
Yeah, this will be the final question on this, because we'll obviously get into it in a big way next week. And I almost hate to ask you, Cora, but you and all Mayo fans have lived through a lot of defeats, and they have tended to come against the bigger teams, except for the one that stands out, I suppose, would be Donegal. So I'm not trying to bring you down a very negative road here, but I'm just curious, is it easier to lose to the kind of a romantic opponent than it is to lose to Kerry or Dublin? Or does it matter?
I don't know, but that's I've listened to a few different podcasts and a few different things in papers, read them in the last while, and one sticks out that Andy Moran always speaks about the 2012 All-Ireland against Donegal as one that they should have definitely won and got away. So yeah, I'd say to lose to someone like Tyrone, obviously it's an All-Ireland final, it won't matter who they lose to, but Mayo would certainly go up there with huge expectations of wanting to succeed, and yeah, they just won't fear Tyrone. I think they have And people do, like, you can't really talk like psychological baggage, but we haven't had against Donegal and Kerry in All-Ireland finals. And, while Kerry's probably goes back longer to Donegal, but we've had, games against Kerry that we, should have won and didn't win, and, semi-finals. So we haven't had that really against Tyrone. So, it probably doesn't get into the psyche of the players. It's more a fans and a supporters thing. But yeah, I think certainly, yeah, when you listen to someone like Andy Moran saying that Donegal All-Ireland final was one that they should have won and it was their opportunity. Of course, when, the so-called favourites in Dublin and Kerry are gone out, you kind of think, okay, this is an All-Ireland that we should be winning. But, it's going to take 75 plus minutes and a huge performance to get over Tyrone.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic, and we'll be looking forward to it. And Damian, it might be the last time we see a certain Kerry man on RTÉ screens for a while. Tomás Ó Sé is he's hanging up his tuxedo and getting out the training cones.
Yeah, he's joining the backroom team in Offaly, and I had been chatting to Michael Dignan sideline and at various functions and various events. Well, not functions because it's COVID times, but various games over the last few weeks.
You weren't in the Marion, were you, Damian?
No, I didn't get the text. And even if I did, I would have just assumed they were looking for tickets and I wouldn't have replied. But I could tell by Dignan's the glint in his eyes that there was something afoot and that there was a big move coming. And he kind of said a couple of times, we'll have big news soon or whatever. So I think the news came a little bit earlier than they would have liked. It probably got out somewhere, but Tomas, I suppose from a coaching point of view, he's worked with Billy Morgan with UCC. He took the Glanmire intermediate team, Glanmire minor team, and is now over their first team there as well, and has had good success there in fairness to him as well. And I think that obviously as a footballer, everybody knows what he's about, like with his 5 All-Irelands and 5 All-Stars as well, former footballer of the year. But I think maybe from his punditry then, you do get an insight into what he will bring. And, he's got a good way of dissecting. He's fairly straight talking. Probably a bit like watching the soccer match last night where your man's aura just probably got Portugal through. Tomás Ó Sé has an aura as well. And for the Offaly footballers to come in after getting promotion to Division 2, their hurlers are motoring quite well. The under-20 footballers obviously are full of exciting young players. Now, I'd press caution on that one because their conditioning and their style of football probably won't cut it at senior at the moment. So they need time to transition, and hopefully Tomas will be instrumental in that. But really, it's a good news all around. And I think that the media will be all the poorer for Tomas's absence for however long he's involved with Offaly. But great to see him spreading his wings. He's joining a county where there's a massive buzz. And I would say it's only going to feed into his own managerial and coaching CV as well, Mikey.
Yeah, Rory, you of course are the producer of the Sunday game. And I know you're also a keen watcher of golf. So one of your heroes, Shane Lowry here, he's cuckolding you. He's stealing your man away from you. It must sting.
You couldn't not but wish him the best, though. And funnily enough, he's actually going to do co-commentary on the All-Ireland football final, which will be his swan song. And it's good, like you get to hear him for 75, 80 minutes. And we'll get to see him a little bit as well, obviously, at the top of the show. So, but yeah, look, you couldn't not but wish him well. I would also echo Damian's word of caution here because they are going into Division 2 next year. Now, in Division 2 next year, Galway, Roscommon, Cork, Meath, Kerry, Down, and who else am I missing? There's another couple of big hitters in there as well.
Step.
Like, there's every possibility they will struggle in that league next year. Not because of anything that Tomas might be doing wrong or anything that John Mahan might be doing wrong. It's just a lot of those teams in there would probably feel that they would be Super 8s in a previous life and possibly, last 4 contenders for All-Ireland championships. So they're going to have to make a massive jump up. Now, I think Tomas's aura, as Damian said, will definitely get a twist out of some of those young lads. And I think this is a great first step for him. I would imagine he has ambitions down the line to become the Kerry manager. Ultimately, you're not going to get that job, Mikey, from sitting in his TV studio. Like, the Kerry County Board aren't going to hand you the banished door bib for what you're saying on the Sunday game for 5 or 6 minutes. So he probably needed to start dipping his toes more firmly in the water. And one thing that Damian mentioned it as well, like he was over the Glanmire Minors. And that might seem insignificant to a lot of people outside. But to win a Minor A football championship in Cork, right? bear in mind, it's like 2 championships you've got to win. You've got to win your division first, which is the area that you contest in, and then you go out into a sort of a county championship, which is the 8 different divisional winners. This is in an area now that's dominated by Sarsfield's hurling club, which is not football friendly at all. And for Tomás to win a minor A football championship with them was no mean feat, and it'll give you an indication of the kind of impression that he can make on young lads and in terms of getting the best out of them. So you'd wish him every success, and I think he will be a big success.
Yeah. Cora, what was your impression of Tomás? You've obviously worked with him a bit now. That would you have been, the punditry is going very well for him. You could, if you wanted to make a parallel with soccer, you could say he's kind of on the lines of a Gary Neville. He's a great former player, pockets full of medals, kind of taken an analytical approach to the punditry, which maybe some of his predecessors hadn't. But then when you hear he's gone into management, or into coaching, to me it was no shock. It was like, yeah, he always seemed that was the way he'd be inclined. Would you have had the same impression?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's always, on any team that you play in, there's always 1 or 2 that you can know automatically that's going to become a coach or a manager down the line. And you can see that from Tomás. You can see that in his punditry and the way he talks about football and he can analyse a game. And I think it's a huge coup for Offaly to get someone of his stature to come in and to coach a team. Obviously, John Mahon is in there as manager, but if you're a young Offaly player, and obviously the under-20s have had success in winning the All-Ireland a couple of weeks ago, and Damian's very right, it's going to take them a little while to transition through and be ready for senior football. They're not all going to be ready straight away, especially with the under-20 category now being under-20 and not 21. But if you have someone like Tomás Ó Sé that's won 5 All-Irelands, the respect that they have for him instantly is huge, but he knows what it takes to win at a top level. Obviously with Offaly, their main thing is to stay in Division 2 and try and compete in Leinster. But he's automatically going to try and make them better footballers. The standards that he'll set and bring straight away to day 1 to Offaly training is going to be huge. So, yeah, you knew from day 1, as I said, there's certain footballers in each team that you look at and you say, yeah, they're definitely going to go into coaching and management. And it's the same in ladies football. You can pick them out straight away. And, same on that Mayo team. I look at, again, the likes of Andy Moore, and he's started to dip his toes into club coaching here. But he's one that you can always straight away say that, he's a real passion for the game. And I think Tomás is going to do a super job with Offaly. But I do think what Rory said, it's for down the line. Tomás has such passion for Kerry. It's down the line that in a couple of years' time, he's looking for that Kerry senior job. And yeah, like anyone else, you have to be an apprentice for a while and do your stint. And I think that's where you learn in counties like that, that things aren't as easy. You're not winning all the time. And, you have to bring young players through. And it's a so-called weaker county that he'll be in. And I think he'll learn a lot from there. And yeah, and in time, I wouldn't be surprised if Tomás Ó Sé is Kerry manager and doing very well with them.
Yeah, well, not winning all the time, but the under-20 title, Faithful Fields is there. They've got himself, they've got Mahon, they've got Michael Fennelly in the hurn. They're really they've really turned things around there.
They have a lot of outgoing expenses.
Yeah, they've got a PGA Tour golfer though as well. Who's passionate.
But I think it's great. You see someone like Michael Dignan coming in and into a county board, and let's face it, on the hurling and football front a few years back, they were struggling on both codes, and he's come in and he's done a super job to get high profile people in and to push it, and we see their fruits are coming to fruition already in with the under-21 victory and what they've achieved in both hurling and football in a relatively short space of time. So you have to give them huge credit.
Yeah. Cora, you're 100%. Sorry, Mikey. Cora is 100% right, because especially for the last 18 months, apologies, Rory, for cutting in. For the last 18 months, I've been listening to the county boards and listening to the troubles that they have and the financial plight that they have and the lack of resources. And I think there's a great divide there between the likes of Dublin football and other counties, maybe around the Midlands or Division 3, Division 4. And they're a million miles away. But as Cora said, what Offaly have done there with Michael Dignan, profile, personality, enthusiasm, energy. They've made things happen. They're trying to get the GDAs. Ambition. Strategic plan, trying to get maybe GDAs up from maybe 5 or 6 up to 11 or 12, trying to get back into the schools again, which is the founding stone for Offaly hurling, for example. People like Colin Cummins is acting as secretary, Paul Rouse, they're behind the scenes tapping away. Great people. even with their PRO, Brendan Minnock, one of the most genuine, proactive, helpful, courteous officials you can meet. And for a long time there, Offaly was associated with dropping down through the leagues, a row over where they played or hurling. Their underage thing was nearly an embarrassment. And I'm not saying Michael Dignan is responsible for everything. He's not, because the work has started before he took over. But there's certainly momentum there now. And I think that they should, on a crest of a wave, they should stay on it as long as they possibly could. And Shane Lowry coming in, even if he did 2 fundraising days a year for them, Q&As or golf events, he could raise maybe 100 grand at each event. And that's colossal money for a county like Offaly, for any county. It just helps them plan for the future.
Yeah. Okay, well, more power to them. We'll move on to Sunday's final now, and Cora, I wanted to start with Hannah Tyrrell, because it's just a fantastic story, really. That, you know, the world of rugby was paused, and so she went back playing with Nafina, or went to play with Nafina. It wasn't her home club; she's from Round Towers. She went playing with Nafina and thought, right, the Rugby World Cup is going to happen, you know, and so I'll just kick a bit of ball to keep myself going. Then it gets iced for a year, so she texted Mick Bowen and said, look, I'll come in for training. I don't know if I'm going to be good enough or not. In 9 games, she scored 348. So I think she's shown she's good enough. And she's kind of done the reverse of you know, like she hadn't kicked a football, Gaelic football. She hadn't kicked a round football pretty much for 6 years before she went back to Nafina. It's kind of the reverse of what you had to do, obviously, where you had to get used to the oval ball down under. And so I suppose you can probably have some appreciation for it. Well, obviously she had her childhood and she has a grounding in the game, but she was immersed in a completely different sport for the best part of a decade, and to come back and to, at the highest level, perform the way she has performed is phenomenal, I think.
Yeah, and it's been huge for Dublin. I can't say enough about her coming back, because, you know, even for myself, when I'm in Australia, even trying to adapt back to club football here, and then when I go back over to try and adapt to AFL again, it takes time. And more so, it probably takes time for me to adapt back to my unnatural sport, because obviously Gaelic, you know, is your first sport, so it probably takes a little less time, but it does take time. But she's done a phenomenal job for Dublin since she's come in. I think in most of her games between league and championship, certainly in the latter stages of the league and championship, she's been player of the match in majority of the games that she's played, which is, you know, is a huge feat when you're in a star-studded Dublin lineup there of, you know, some hugely quality forwards and players right throughout the pitch. So yeah, she's done massive, and she's filled a void there that Dublin had with Noelle Healy retiring and leaving, and you know, with the players that Mick has brought through, and especially Hannah, we haven't, you know, really seen the loss of Noelle Healy, who's a huge loss. She's a footballer of the year. She's won numerous All-Stars, and you know, was one of Dublin's key forwards. So yeah, what Hannah has done, and even in the semi-final against Mayo, probably had relatively enough quietish opening first half, but in her second half performance, I think kicked 5 points. So yeah, she's been huge, and you know, she just blended into the Dublin forward line. It's not just her scoring prowess. If you watch her over the field, she's actually one of these players that can be playing inside. She can play out the half forward line, playing as a tracker, working as a wing forward. So yeah, she's a number of different things that she can do on match day. But like, it's interesting, when she was in with Dublin before this stint, she was in a few years before her rugby, she was in a sub goalie. So like to go from a sub goalie to now being one of their key forwards and their high scoring forwards, and you know, is going to win an All-Star at the end of the year, and come back in your first year, probably win an All-Ireland. You know, you'd have to say Dublin are favourites. Would probably nailed on for an All-Star and possibly win Player of the Year. It's some story, and you know. It's fair play to her what she's done to come back. Obviously, the rugby background has probably helped her. I mean, the training-wise, the strength conditioning and fitness work has obviously brought her to a new level, and has certainly helped her. And yeah, it's an amazing story.
One thing I would say on her, Mikey, though, I watched a couple of their games there last night, and she's like, and I 100% again echo Cora in that she brings a little bit more than just scoring threat. Like, she does tend to ghost. She'll ghost inside, like I'd say that sort of positional sense, and her ability to sort of replay and pick up the right positions definitely comes from a rugby background.
Well, she's an out half, so she's
so like she's very clued in there. Like you could see her drifting out on the right hand side. Next thing, all of a sudden, she's in full forward. She's a target for long balls to go in. One little caveat I would offer on all of this: she uses her right foot for effectively standing on. She is extremely she does not have. So if you were in an opposition sizing her up, for instance, if Meath are looking at a potential weakness, if you push her onto her right foot, she's not getting a shot off. She just isn't.
Rory, you're right in what you're saying. I was going to make a point, actually. Cora would know more about this, the technicalities of it. She has an unbelievable way, though, of manipulating her body into a shooting position to suit the left in a flash of time. Yeah. Even the goal she got a few weeks ago, running in, whereby she had to move over from her right side to her left, but dropped her shoulder, maybe dropped the ball down so she couldn't be blocked. I don't know what it is. It's pure natural, but she just has an ability, even though she is one-sided, to get out of trouble the whole time. And Corey,
but she's rangy, she's very tall and rangy.
Yeah,
and I think that gives her that sort of elusive abilities. But I do think, I don't know whether it's because they don't necessarily concentrate, like Sinead Ahern would be the complete opposite. If I was a back, I'd find Sinead actually more difficult, because you don't know whether she's going to kick off either foot, and from distance or from close in. So look, they have loads of threats, and Hannah, I think, is just a really good addition to their arsenal up front.
Yeah, I think she's a massive addition. The player that makes their forward line tick. Without Sinead Ahern has been brilliant. Probably her quietest season to date in the probably of the 5 All-Irelands, or the 4 All-Ireland they've won previous, is Lindsay Davey.
Yeah,
she's their quarterback in American football. She makes them tick. She has been playing phenomenal football for them. Last year was phenomenal. Again this year, she's the one player. If I'm Eamon Murray and I'm wondering, where do I stop them from the ball going in? She's one. She gets up and down the pitch. She's a phenomenal player and probably doesn't get enough credit, because they've such a star-studded line. Adding Carla Rowe there, as we said, Hearn, Niamh McAvoy, and now they brought in young players like Queen O'Connor, Siobhan Killeen back from soccer. So she's the one player if you had to target to stop. I think she makes Dublin tick. So I do think if he's worrying about who their main marker goes on, I'd be putting it on Lindsay Davey every day of the week.
Yeah. I was kind of so keen to talk about Hannah Tyrrell there. I didn't really kind of introduce the women's football final very well to those who maybe aren't overly familiar with it. It's 5 in a row chasing Dublin are taking on their nearest neighbours, Meath. But Meath are just a great story, really. They're intermediate champions from last year, so they were only promoted last year. When Eamon Murray took over in 2017, as he says himself, they were a kick of the ball away from going down to Division 4. And he says they were getting regular beatings from the likes of Wicklow and Wexford, which I took as a slight, because obviously he said this is as bad as it gets. But it was bad. And he was an underage coach there, Cora, and he told the county chairman, "Look, I don't want this. I'm happy." He's from Cavan. He said, I love producing players for the senior team. I have no interest in managing the senior team." He got 4 or 5 calls from the county chairman, and he eventually took the job. And he just seems he seems a little bit quirky. You can see the underage coach in him. He seems very much about morale and kind of the psychological side of the game. He seems to be very light and breezy about this All-Ireland final. And they're obviously massive underdogs, but they have absolutely nothing to lose, because they're in, I hate the phrase, but they're total bonus territory, Cora, I would say at this stage.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I'm with you on Eamon Murray. He's certainly your coach that you probably win at under 14, under 16 level, and enjoyment and fun and all that. And you can see they're playing. They love playing from and I do give it to them. Watching the Cork match, they have a system of play and they stick to that defensive system of play.
Defensive. It's quite defensive, isn't it, Cora?
There was times I was watching the Cork game and I was like, you're nearly getting agitated, saying, "Will you please push forward?" Like the first 30-40 minutes of that game, I remember I was working for RTÉ on radio that day, and I was just like, "Oh my God, this game it was 4 points to all." It was just, there was nothing in it. It was very defensive, and you just wanted something to happen, because I've seen Meath play before, and they're quite attack-minded, and they go. But he's for the first half an hour, 40 minutes, to just sat back and defended. Obviously, they're afraid of Cork and not wanting to go ahead. But I think when they got under a little bit of pressure, and Cork went ahead, they had to kind of let the shackles off. And they got ahead. But yeah, no, they're a team that are very interesting. They remind me of a team that I was involved when we won our first All-Ireland. We went in against a Waterford team, massive underdogs, our first All-Ireland. We came from nowhere, no one expected us to play, and we went on and won our first All-Ireland in 99, and that they kind of remind me of a Mayo team back then. As I said, we came from nowhere and we were massive underdogs going in, and we bet Waterford. So yeah, they are massive underdogs. This is a massive Dublin team. This is their 8th final in a row. They're going for 5 in a row. Obviously, they lost the 3 previous to Cork. So it's going to be massively difficult for them. And they probably have to go back to playing that defensive style of play for certainly the earlier stages of the game till they settle in. And the biggest thing, I think, and a lot of people that obviously, look at men's football and ladies football, Croke Park is a factor in these games. And it was a factor the last day for Meath versus Cork because of the length of the pitch and how wide and long the pitch is. And obviously ladies footballers and their ability to shoot from long range isn't obviously the same as men. That's where probably Meath struggled to try and get from that counter attack, from defence to attack, because of it's such a long pitch to try and get up. They struggled once they turned over the ball in a counter attack. Normally they're gone and they get a score, but they struggled to do that the last day. A lot of balls were dropping short. So I think that's something that Ava Murray will worry about, how they can get from their defence to attack and get their counter attack working, because it only really worked in the last probably 10-15 minutes against Cork. And let's be fair, against Cork.
And Cora, they had a lot of luck against Cork. I mean, Ciara O'Sullivan went off after 10 minutes with a shoulder injury, who's arguably Cork's best player. And the penalty they were given was a free out. I mean, Jesus, it was a bloody free out. Like, I mean, Vicky, it wasn't Vicky Wall. I was the sub 23 camera. Came barging through the middle, and she fell over. And next thing, he blows for a penalty. I can understand Aoife's complaints at that. Now, look, in fairness, the restart was Cork's own fault then to actually concede the second goal so soon. Are Dublin going to concede? Like, if Dublin are 7 points up with a couple of minutes to go, are Dublin going to blow it?
No, they're not. And that's where I was just about to get on to Rory.
Sorry.
No, you're all right, not at all. I think the bit that, and I hate to say it, but that was a game that Cork lost rather than Meath winning. They blew it. I remember watching the game and I was like, okay, I think it was there was about 3 minutes to go. There were 7 points up. Yeah. And at 50 seconds, there was still a goal up. They conceded the penalty. It was back to 3 points. At 40, I think it was 47 seconds, she kicked the ball out short to Hannah Looney. Hannah Looney won a free, was very like, oh my God, just kick the ball long. And then she kicked it back to Martina, and that's how they got obviously the goal. And then they had the momentum going into extra time. But yeah, it's going to be a massive game, or like for me to try and go out and win it. It's going to be Dublin have to play at the poorest they've probably played in a long time, and Meath playing the best game they ever played. Yeah. This Dublin team is they're a different animal. They're a really physical. They're the most physical ladies football side since I retired from football. I remember playing them in 2017 and watching the 2018 All-Ireland, and their physicality. I think since Mick come in, and he's always talking about the tackle and ladies football needs to be more than non-contact and all this, but they're the most physical side, and they will not let that Meath team run at them and get through them. Any team that they play, their physicality is huge, and they've stars right throughout their pitch. Their midfield is probably Jennifer Dunn and Laura McGee are the best midfield, hands down. And again, the Meath midfield is probably an area that they're struggling. So yeah, they have a few injury doubts. Probably Meath's only chance Carla Rowe is an injury doubt. Niamh Collins, Niamh McAvoy, and I've heard Siobhan McGrath is as well. So they're 4 massive players for Dublin. For me to have any chance, you wouldn't want them 4 to play, and they have a number of stars in the bin. So obviously Goldie came back for her first half of football last week, and you could name 5 or 6 more players from their bench.
Oh, great!
They're a phenomenal team, and again, it be a bit like the Dublin men when they decide a few, and it possibly could be after Sunday when a few decide to retire and step away. It might be a thing that they'll become a team that maybe the Mayos and the Meaths and the Corks will catch up to, but it'll be on their decision to step away. They're a phenomenal team, and they'll go for as long as their players stay around.
So, Damian, Cora paints a pretty stark picture there, and I think Dublin they've won their last 25 championship matches, like not unbeaten in 25. They've just won them. There's no draws. There's no messing around like the men. They've just won every single game. It's very hard to make a case for Meath, but I'm going to ask you to. And the one thing I could say is they have in Emma Duggan. She's just a star. She clearly has a fantastic mentality.
Vicky Wall is definitely somebody that they can get enough supply and ball into. She can cause damage as well, but.
And then there's the confidence after that issue, Damian. They must have left Croke Park 2 weeks ago just walking on air thinking that they were, the best thing since sliced bread, and rightly so. They should have felt that way. So they need to keep that kind of air of confidence, if at all possible, I guess.
Well, I suppose a couple of things. First of all, just to finish off the Dublin chat, Mikey. I mean, Mick Bohan, I'd say, will be in massive demand if he decides to step away if they do a 5 in a row and he decides to step away, because he's, even from his time training Clare, he's in massive demand. Cora's outlined what he's brought to that Dublin team. Cora's also outlined where Meath might struggle to get their scores in transition, whereas players like Carla Rowe have been rampaging up and down that field. I always feel Carla could score anything on any given day, but again, the last day out, the Dublin subs bench was like the Harlem Globetrotters. I mean, the star quality I saw, was it the Dublin Mayo game, Cora? I just saw the subs warming up when I was there. My God Almighty, just
Neil
counting
McAvoy,
exactly, and you're counting the All-Ireland medals and you're counting the quality there as well. And then you say to yourself, have Meath any chance whatsoever? And I'd say the chance they have is quite small. But you mentioned Emma Duggan, guys. Niamh Sullivan and Emma Troy as well are good players. And I just felt that even against Armagh, I didn't give them any chance whatsoever, to be honest with you. Now, Armagh didn't turn up on the day and Meath turned them over. Last time out, I give them no chance whatsoever, but they stuck at it. And Cora, I suppose the reason for their defensive style is maybe to stay in games and to stay at it. They have, I guess, a manager who's positive, who believes in them, who has brought them an awful long journey. And the one point I make is that does give them a bit of hope. Even from our own perspective in Tipperary, we were on a yo-yo effect, bouncing up and down from intermediate to senior for quite a while under Shane Ronayne, who did an unbelievable job with the team of girls that he had. And we had star players in our team too, the likes of the Ashleens, and I think we always had a chance of getting firepower. But yet when we reached senior level, I suppose, as we can even see up to last weekend, found it hard to stick at it. So Meath are on a roll, no matter what we address it up like. They're after come up from intermediate, they're Division 1 football, the champions, I suppose, is in their mindset now. They have a bit of luck going for them as well, but they have a style of play. And I suppose they're going into a final with absolutely nothing to lose against possibly the greatest team. And you might argue with this, Cora, but like on paper, possibly the greatest team that has ever graced ladies football. But yet you couldn't write them off. I don't think they'll win, but I think if they keep it tight, who knows what will happen? Because maybe the pressure could get to Dublin. I'm not saying it's likely, but the way maybe it got to the men's footballers this year, you just don't know what the mentality is like. Yeah,
it's been a year. Yeah. It's been a year of shocks, Cora, so we have to live in hope.
Yeah, I think this will be the biggest shock of all. You have to give them a chance, and they do have quality footballers. They're quite a young team in their forward line. Vicky Wall, you're talking about. Emma Duggan is only 18. Stacey Grimes, these type of players, they're all early 20s or very young kind of. So they're very inexperienced side. Obviously, winning the intermediate All-Ireland, Damian's dead right. Stepping up from intermediate to senior is a huge challenge, and we've seen it. Tipperary stepped up when to intermediate. Westmeath are in the intermediate final. They're only after coming down from senior, and they're now in an intermediate final. We've seen them with Tyrone are now gone back down to intermediate and come up to senior. So there is that step up. I think Meath are probably the best equipped to stay in senior, that's credit to Eamon Murray and what he's built over the last few years. It might have been to do that they've been in 3 intermediate All-Irelands before they won one. So yeah, I do think it's going to be a game where it's going to be very difficult for them. The only probably little bit of hope I give to me is that in Dublin's 4 championship games in the 2 round robins, the quarter final, and obviously against Mayo in the semi final, they have had moments in the game where they have lapses and they switch off. They've conceded, I think, something around 6 or 7 goals in them 4 matches. Against Mayo, they conceded 2 soft goals in the first half. They were well on top. Mayo only scored 2-1 in the first half, but there were 2 goals. where they let them in behind for each goal, where Mayo ran at them a bit like what Meath will do. So that's where I give Meath a little bit of a chance. That Dublin are a little bit susceptible at the back to conceding goals. McBohan won't like that because they're a team that are normally very tight at the back and don't concede. If you look at previous years, that they haven't conceded that much. So he will be a little bit worried about that. Again, it goes down if Niamh Collins and Siobhan McGrath are not fit to play or are carrying injuries. That's your full back and your centre back that you're missing. But it's a good core of your back line that you really don't want to be missing, and they're going to have to change things around there. So that's what I give a little bit. But I think, for me, when you're in an All-Ireland final, for the first 20 minutes or so, keep it tight at the back. You know, it's if they want to win, this is going to have to be a low-scoring game. But if Dublin do get on top, there's no point being too defensive. They're just going to have to go at it, because I think against Cork, it took them to probably the last couple of minutes to go at it. And they seen when they went at Cork, they could achieve something. So I think it's really important. Hold tight for the first 20-25 minutes. But when you get your opportunities to go, that the Dublin defence at times can be a little bit susceptible to conceding scores. So that's I'm sure Eamon Murray has looked at that and said, this is an area that we could get at them.
Okay. The old adage, you can't win a game in the first 10 minutes, but you can lose it. We'll leave it at that, folks. I think it's going to be an interesting game. It's a novel pairing, which is a nice thing, but I think Cora has very eloquently laid out the scale of the challenge ahead of Meath. So the best luck to both teams on Sunday. You can listen to that match on RTÉ Radio 1 and follow the live blog and everything else on the RTÉ website and the RTÉ News app. So I'll just say thank you very much to Damian and to Cora and to Rory in his absence. He's already left us, and we will catch you all again next week. Thanks very much, folks.
Crucial from this. How much longer will the referee allow? Dublin lead by a point, and there's the whistle. It's over. It's over.
We earned it by winning the last 2 matches on the road, and that's not going to be taken away from us.
But what I love in hurling, I love players that will never give in.
He hits it. It's over the bar. Oh, holy Moses.